Hey guys, what's going on? I just have it figured no matter what happens in this episode, it's going to be bad, okay? It's going to be bad. First off, how is everybody doing? It is Tuesday night, Star Wars versus Warhammer 40k, episode 42, Mortal Fall, part 1. Fan is in with us. I have had a very exciting 2 days here. Just a lot of good things happening. First and foremost, some of you guys might know Warrior Tier. Well, if you watch any of the 40k content that I check out as well as my own, you know that I'm a big fan of Warrior Tier. Well, it turns out that they like checking out what I do, and even better, their audio and video. If you've taking a look at some of the shorts that have come out, one of them was actually made by the audio video guy for Warrior 2. He came up and he was like, hey, have you tried shorts? I was like, I never really did them. I didn't know what I was doing with them. He taught me how to make shorts. He made the Nurgle one, I made the Lamenter one, and then I turned around, and the Among Us video is something I actually put together just to display the general psychosis of that Valkyrie. Guys, how are you doing? How is everyone doing? Just X in chat if you've had a good day. Put an F in chat if you have kind of a bad day. And if you put an F in chat, you have my condolences. Because frankly, it's just, I've had them too. I've had them too over the past couple of weeks. Guys, Dr. Anonymous is back for last time. Guys, the last episode, finding out that guy was an Alpha Plus Psyker answered a lot of questions. A lot of terrifying ones, but at the same time, it did answer a bunch of questions. Oh my god, the amount of things that came out in that last episode. And it was so short, but it proved so much, okay? When he was revealed, when the Inquisitor was revealed to be an Alpha Plus Psyker, I died laughing. It's one of those situations where the only thing you can do is laugh because holy God, is it bad. The lonely Kakapoo says, well, I had to take my laptop to get repaired today, so not a great day, but not the worst either. You get a lowercase x. Hey, that every once in a while, man, you gotta get things to get fixed. Nurgle gave his fam the gifts. You bring Eldar, Tau, and Heresy. Now somebody love me? No, you will not get loved. You will get virus bombs. V in chat to virus bomb this guy. Let's see. Both good and bad, Lord Commander. Prophet is here. Prophet is, of course, doing good. Slacker, he had an okay day. What about Batai Bolt? Yeah, pretty much, dude. Pretty much. Hey, Ripoff, what's going on, bud? Emperor Eagle, Lone Guardsman. Ronnie's here. Kristen Kepler's here. Hellfire is here. Dark Lord is here. Doors Hammer's here. Misplaced ODST. Multiple third-party sources. Attention, Commissar! Multiple third-party sources have reported 2 sexy Primarchs stalking the ship and committing heresy. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I would not be surprised. Jack Boyd is here. He says Fan is here, which he is. Alistair Boneman is here. Who else is here? And Takira's here. Everybody's here. Okay, so you're driving home from university right now, Chris? Good on you, bud. Good on you. Enjoy the ride home. Enjoy the ride home. Prophet says you go to hunt the Xenos and the Mortal Corp slaves. Yes. Super Saiyan Diclonius is here, and I gotta tell you guys something. There is a project that, once I finish the Eric video, which has experienced some delays, the third part has experienced some delays, mainly because, well, it's a lot of stuff. I'm going to be doing something, and Diclonius wrote it, and it's good, and I'm going to enjoy doing it, so he wrote this thing, and I cannot wait to actually record and edit the thing, because it was great. Loyal Cast Silvers says, summon the Electric Counts. LOC Nation is here. What's my favorite chapter? Black Templars. Hands down. Done. Lamenter's close. Lamenter's, yeah. Closest second as you're going to get. You guys have been spamming me saying, what is the worst war crime you can conceive of? And I got a feeling it's going to be in here. I got a feeling we're about to have a bad... like, I know that this, as soon as that guy got revealed to be an Alpha Plus Slacker, I knew the next episode was going to be an absolute horror show. What's worse, letting Tau live or Erebus live? Letting Erebus live, because without Erebus being around, they would have killed the Tau in their infancy. What is our fave traitor legion? Night Lords, hands down. With the exception of one, Iron Warriors. I'm used to saying Night Lords. You summon Dark Eldar? Why? Alright, guys, who is ready for this episode of Star Wars vs. 40K? Who is ready? This is going to be horrifying. Hey, Indigo, what's going on, bud? Alright, so you got me going on a smart TV? Nice. Alright, guys, I've got the mood lighting set. This is going to be horrifying. I have some Monster. I have some tea. I'm ready to go. I'm waiting for Fan to let me know that he's back, because I like Fan to be here. Nomad's here. Summon Skaven, yes. For a moment there, you have are what? Don't worry about me. I'm an idiot. Okay. ODST or Spartan? Really ODST. Really ODST. Where is Fan? I know he said he had to be right back. We summoned they make Tau suffer? Okay, well, I'll deal with it for them. About to get an oof? Why? Why am I about to get an oof? Is this episode really that unrelentingly horrifying? In which case, I really can't wait. I'm just waiting for Fan to get back. Where is Fan? Anyhow, Warsmith Hanzo, how's it going? When will the orcs show up in the Star Wars galaxy? I don't know. Oh, he was busy? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Where's Iron Kiko? I don't know. Imagine a curse that sided with the loyalists. That would be nightmarish. Alright, so, out of curiosity, does anyone else understand the pain of getting 90% of the way through and painting a model, then realizing you used the wrong pattern? I won't say that I got angry. Alright, here we go. Let's get started. Red ones do go faster.
Ahsoka walked behind the Imperial prisoner, eyes fixed to his back, her arms crossed over her chest. The former Jedi had figured, even before attempting to speak with him, that it would be best if she kept herself out of his sight as much as possible. Given what his initial reaction to her appearance had been, she imagined that he had been virtually programmed to attack anything he saw as alien on sight. Even more than that, however, Ahsoka had learned from her last encounter with an Imperial prisoner that to turn her back on him, even for a second, was an invitation to disaster. A lesson she had already learned once, and which had nearly cost her her life. The memory of that priest pressing his fingers into her face, moments from tearing out her living energy, still haunted her. His blind expression burned into her memory like an afterimage of the sun could be burnt into an eye. She shook her head, collecting herself and focusing again on her current prisoner. She doubted he was nearly as dangerous, but one never knew. The prisoner was older than her, but younger than she would have expected a non-clone soldier to be. So it surprised her just how well indoctrinated he had been, though Ahsoka had to admit that it was becoming clear that he was not the victim of mere brainwashing. The flashes of memory he had shown her unwittingly, and the torrents of his emotions, had all been 100% genuine and honest. She had been doing research on the Paestia, of course, but more and more, she was beginning to think these people had little or nothing to do with that ancient cult. The imp had been thoroughly searched, and they had found several odd scripts and text on him, but none of them seemed to make reference to the Paestia or their goddess. She had had them all scanned while he was unconscious, and then ordered that anything that was not a weapon be put back onto his person, for he would need to seem as normal as possible for her plan to work. Her mind still returned again and again to the origin of these odd human invaders. Unless the pious Dia had been flung out of the galaxy and deposited in a place which closely resembled the Dia's own religious depictions of hell, then it just did not seem likely that they were related. It was in large part because of that Ahsoka was flexing so much patience with this young man, despite how uncooperative he had been after his tirade had exhausted itself. He had just gone back to reciting his name and regiment once he had calmed from his rage, and she had not even been able to squeeze the definition of abhuman out of him afterwards. But the former Padawan had one more trick up her sleeve. Well, two technically, but this first one was the one she was putting most of her faith into. Threatening him with the second was not only something she did not want to resort to, but she doubted it would work, especially after what he had said earlier. "It's just around here," she told him, the clones to either side of Farnes helping to guide the restrained imp into the small workshop they had built, one of them leading him with a firm hand on his shoulder. She was grateful when he did not respond by, again, reciting the same words he had been droning out.
Fan just got back. Everyone nuke Prophet.
Instead choosing to look defiant as the doors opened and he was made to step into the cramped, low-lit room. There, a commando named Fixer was working diligently, staying off of his wounded leg at Ahsoka's orders. He looked up from what he was doing as they entered and nodded at Ahsoka when he saw her. "Commander?" he affirmed. "Don't get up, Fixer. How is it going?" she asked as they all filed into the room. It was covered wall to wall with speeder parts and other pieces of vehicles, which had been the primary purpose behind the place before the invasion had begun. Now it had been quickly converted into Fixer's workplace, and his latest project was still before him. The clone shook his head at Ahsoka's words, turning to allow them to see what he had been tinkering with. The servo skull that Rex had shot lay inert on the table, intact, but showing no signs of life. "Bofin!" Farnes exclaimed, attempting to walk forward but being swiftly yanked back by his shoulder. "What the frag do you think you're doing?" The clone to his left scolded. Farnes grit his teeth, angry lines drawing over his face, but Ahsoka intervened, stepping in front of him and raising a hand to forestall any response he was about to have. He balked at her appearance, even as she looked past him and nodded to the clone. "It's all right. Let him approach it," she said, and the guard begrudgingly nodded back. "Yes, Commander," he said, releasing him. Farnes, hands secured tightly behind his back by binder cuffs, came forward in a rush. Fixer standing up and away, his hand going to his sidearm as the Imperial stood before the device, eyes darting rapidly. "Bofin? Bofin!" the young man said, looking at the machine frantically before glaring up at the clone beside him. "What did you do to him?" he accused, almost spitting the words. "Captain Rex," Fixer corrected. "Shot your skull droid here with a stun blast. It fried the power packs keeping it active. I replaced them with energy cells, but the clanker didn't respond or reactivate," he explained. "You defiled Bofin with alien technology? Of course he wouldn't wake to that!" Farnes spat, shaking his head. "Well, when that didn't work, I tried to use some Imperial power packs I'd salvaged from the field. But that didn't work out either. I can't tell what more about this thing is damaged, but in my opinion, this imp clanker is fried," said Fixer, limping back a bit more and addressing his words mostly to Ahsoka. Farnes shook his head in dismay before straightening as a thought struck him. "Well, did you apply any sacred oil, or even recite the litany of second life?"
"Did you?"
Farnes asked the clone, still glaring angrily at the helmed man. Apply the what? Recite the what?" Fixer asked. Farnes sighed in exasperation before turning back to Ahsoka, visibly wincing at her appearance again. "Xenos, you want to convince me you're trustworthy, right?" he said, obviously harnessing his courage just to voice the words. Ahsoka nodded in response, but kept her arms crossed, raising an eyebrow marking at him. "Then let me go. Remove these cuffs from my hands right now," he said urgently. "Why? What are you going to do? If you try to run or fight, you won't."
Spooky, server skulls are not necessarily sentient, but they usually, for someone to have been a servo skull, you don't get to become a servo skull unless you've done something. So, servo skulls to certain people are going to have immense sentimental value. They were a prized servant, they were a prized person of some nature. Servitors can be criminals. Servo skulls are usually honored dead, which is screwed up. I'm just saying. Tark, I have a solution to everyone's problem. We send Lucius the Eternal. No. For the love of God, no. It doesn't need to get any worse than it already is, okay?
Well, she started to say,
Just say
but
it.
Farnes shook his head in clear agitation.
Thanks, Tark.
No! Look, I am a trained field tech adept, mostly for APCs, but even I know you can't wake a machine spirit without the proper respects and rituals.
Yes?
I need to see if you killed Bofin or just knocked him out. Please! He said, voice insistent, desperate. Ahsoka thought for a moment, weighing his words and feeling his emotions. Farnes was clearly not trained in how to resist a surface probing, his feelings playing out before the former Jedi like an open book. She sighed, rolling her eyes before nodding her head to one of the clones, who promptly came behind the imp soldier and released his hands. Farnes wasted no time in reaching down to his boots, pulling out something that had been hidden beside his left foot. The clones aimed their weapons at him, but held their fire, though Ahsoka knew better than to caution them away from attacking if needed. Still, she sensed no malice in the action, watching curiously to see what he would do. He withdrew a broken vial which dripped with an oily substance, a substance he flicked over the prone's skull, beginning to speak as he did. The soul of the Omnissiah surrounds thee. The power of the motive force invests thee. The faith of the machine god drives thee. The Emperor endows thee with purpose. Awaken, Bofin, spirit of steel, indebted to man. Awaken! He chanted reverently, closing his eyes as he spoke, his other hand pressed against his heart.
Show them the power of the Imperial.
At his words, nothing appeared to happen.
Damn it!
The Imperial repeating the litany 2 more times as he continued to flick what little oil his vial had onto the skull. Fixer looked up, and even behind his helmet, Ahsoka could see from the tilt of his head that he thought this was all patently ridiculous. That was, until the lights in the skull's face began to flicker, and the anti-grav unit at its base started to warble and hum. The Imperial leaned back and sighed.
Praise the Omnissiah!
Watching as the skull floated up, lights flashing.
By the machine god, I awaken once more to do my duty, in the name of mankind.
It droned.
All praise and hail the holy toaster. It has returned to us. Bofin, burner of bread.
Moment. Beginning reprocessing.
It added a moment later. Ahsoka grinned, but then remembered its reaction to the clones from before and turned to face those which were present with her in the room. Everyone, I can't believe I'm saying this, but leave, she ordered. Everyone but me, Farnes here, and the skull.
Bofin lives. Stomp in the chat, guys.
Are you sure, Commander? Asked one of the clones. Ahsoka shook her head, biting her lip for a moment before firming her expression. No, I'm not. Stay close to the door, but my plan won't work if you're in here with me, she told them, pointedly speaking in Basic. The clones nodded, leaving, one of them helping Fixer to walk as he limped out of the room, none of them going far at all. Why did you make your slaves leave? Farnes asked, confused, walking around the chair Fixer had been sitting in, placing it between himself and the Togrutan warrior defensively. Ahsoka shook her head, breathing heavily through her nose as she tried to shake off the spike of annoyance he had just driven through her. First of all, they are not my slaves. I'm actually friends with most of them, so don't call them that. They are no more slaves of mine than you are a slave to your commander. Got it? She said sternly, the guardsman only slowly nodding. As for the reason they had to leave, well, that's because Bofin there doesn't like clones, and I need him calm if I'm going to prove what I need to, she said.
Reprocessing complete.
The skull droned right after. Ahsoka sighed in some relief, tapping her foot impatiently. Time was ticking. It was constantly running out, and if they took too much longer with any of this, then their window would get dangerously narrow. She needed...
It's already dangerously narrow. You just don't know how bad it is yet.
Someone who wasn't from her side to vouch for her and what she had claimed about her possible humanity, and that was something she hoped to find with the skull. Farnes, could you ask it to identify the people in this room? She asked the openly distrustful Imperial. Farnes narrowed his eyes at her, taking a moment to consider her request before turning to the skull. Bofin, perform the ritual of diagnostic self-examination. Have you undergone any recent changes? He asked it. Farnes, we really don't have time.
Yes.
Ahsoka began to say, but was cut off as the skull buzzed and beeped in response to the already voiced command. Bofin continued its nonsense noises for a couple of tense minutes then, Ahsoka standing.
Those noises are not nonsense. Those are the noises of the machine spirit doing its duty. They are not nonsense. Not nonsense. Now, if it makes noise like a fax machine, that's nonsense.
And growing more impatient, while Farnes kept his eyes locked onto her, as though she might leap over the chair between them in an instant and tear out his throat. Finally, the servo skull chimed and began to speak.
New energy cells detected. Substandard compatibility registered. Runtime reduced by 35 standard hours.
It reported at length. Is there anything else different? Farnes asked, almost seeming disappointed that they had not rigged the machine to explode or lie.
Negative. No other alterations to standard program or hardware detected.
It said in response. Can you ask it now? Ahsoka asked, tapping her foot more rapidly. Fine. Farnes relented after a brief pause. Bofin, identify personnel in this room. He ordered the skull. The strange construct bobbed in the air and then scanned Farnes, a bright blue light emitting from one eye and washing over him briefly. It then hovered over to Ahsoka and repeated the process, making her squint in the bright blue grid of lights. Bofin then proceeded to hover back to where it had started and began to speak.
Human male. Farnes Elitan. Munitorum designation 21411. Service member of the 174th Vistellan Imperial Irregulars, Infantry Division. Service status, active.
It reported.
Unregistered abhuman. Ahsoka Tano, clerical data unavailable. Self-reported Knight of the Motive Force. Please present yourself to the nearest active Magos of your order to re-verify your identity data within the next 12 hours, or face holy reprimand, including but not limited to demerit, censure, demotion, corporeal punishment, and/or execution.
And/or execution.
Ahsoka tried not to act surprised by the list of possible punishments for not having her identification accessible to the skull droid, shaking her head briefly.
Lovely.
At least it had said the part she needed. Unregistered abhuman, Farnes said, shock blowing his eyebrows up as he spoke.
Affirmative.
It droned back. See? Said Ahsoka, uncrossing one arm to gesture to the skull. You were telling the truth, Farnes whispered to himself as Ahsoka continued to speak. That is why I was asking what that meant. Abhuman doesn't sound like an alien or mutant. On top of that...
Hold on a second. Let me nobody talk. 1 second. Prophet is doing Prophet things. H to hug Prophet. We know he hates it. H to hug Prophet. And M for messages of goodwill.
That it came to find me when you needed help. It ran from the clones, but it responded to me, she explained. The Imperial looked genuinely shocked, glancing between the servo skull and Ahsoka a few times as cogs turned in his head, grinding against his ingrained suspicion. I'm not a tech priest. I can't tell for sure you haven't tampered with him, he began to say, causing Ahsoka to groan loudly. Look, how else would I have found you? Why else would it have been there? And why are you alive right now? I haven't told you one lie this entire time, and here at least is some proof that I'm telling you the truth. I don't know what else I can do to... She began to rail, raising her hands into the air in a gesture of utter frustration. You can take me to Nerva. She would know. She's a priest. She would know if you're telling the truth.
Oh boy.
Farnes yelled, cutting her off, and Ahsoka withdrew a bit at that. Is she the one who was in the machine with you?
Yes.
She asked, voice more subdued, Farnes' face going pale at the sound, nodding to her question. She isn't going to be able to help you with that. I'm sorry, Ahsoka said, looking away somewhat as she spoke the words. All the blood finished draining from Farnes' face. Nearly his entire squad was dead. Maybe all of them by now. He couldn't accept that out of all of them, Nerva would be the one that didn't survive out of all of them. Why? What did you do? Is she... Farnes began to say,
probably
hands
dead.
on the back of the chair tightening as he spoke.
Let's be frank. Nerva blind melded with a knight. Normally that doesn't go well for anyone.
Ahsoka shook her head quickly. That was what I was going to show you next. If you can order that If you can make both and stay put in here, then I can take you to see her, she explained calmly, biting down on her own impatience. Farnes looked at her with hard, frantic eyes before slowly nodding and giving the servo skull the command to stay, which it took. Together, they both walked back to the door, opening it and stepping out. All right, hands behind your back, the clone from before said as they exited, but Ahsoka shook her head at him. Leave him. As long as he does not give us any more reason to, then I think we can leave his hands free. You won't betray that trust, will you? Ahsoka said to the clone before turning to address Farnes. He paused as if considering it, but shook his head.
Misplaced ODST says the only thing she needs to do is say Cadia's stance.
As long as you aren't tricking me either, then I won't try anything, he said to her. Ahsoka could feel that this was only a half-truth, but that would need to be enough for now. She needed his cooperation, and every little bit helped. She turned to look at the clones then, gesturing with her chin towards the door.
What?
Seal that room for now, and don't let anyone in without my say-so. Fixer, if you need to get some things out of there, just wait a while. I'll go in and get them later. The clones nodded, and together they all began to walk back towards the medical stations. The tension was building in the Imperial, and she could tell he wanted to run, not walk. And, as a matter of fact, so did she, though for different reasons. But desperation was not something she could afford to project. So, instead of speeding up, she did something else. So, are you going to tell me what an abhuman is? Ahsoka asked as they walked, nearly side by side, with Ahsoka letting him take a slight lead. Farnes did not respond right away.
I have been waiting on the continuation of this for some time now, and I am not disappointed. I am not disappointed whatsoever. Just not at all. X in chat if you're liking the way this is going.
Jaw tensing under his skin. Ahsoka began to puff out a breath as she perceived the silent treatment returning, and was at least somewhat grateful that he was not going back to repeating his name
When
and
is
numbers
Weiler's
again.
thing gonna
When
show
he
up
began
is
to
my
talk,
question.
she was more than a little surprised. Abhumans are human descendants, he said, sounding as though the words had to be forced out of him. They are usually people whose ancestors settled on worlds with odd gravity or weather. Some of them changed over time to be different, and some made themselves different to survive. They aren't the same as us anymore, but they are human at their core, he explained.
True.
So, your machine thinks that I'm human too? At my core, I mean? She asked, genuinely curious. Farnes shrugged stiffly. I guess so, he said almost dismissively, his mind clearly in one place. And soon they arrived at that place, entering a room one floor above where Farnes himself had been tended to. What is all this? He asked, breathing the words out in horror and awe. He looked on, eyes wide, as he beheld the triple row of tanks which were housed on this wide floor, all full of a bluish, clear liquid. And within every single one was a man. All of them suspended inside the fluid by straps, hooked up into breathing devices, most seeming dormant and inert. They were all clones, he saw. All but one. Nerva! He cried out, rushing over to the tank which held his previous companion, shoving the medical droid that was beside it over and onto the ground with obvious disgust and fear. He backtracked away from it, almost falling over himself from the rash act and prompting several of the guards in the room to level their weapons at him. That being the case, he did not seem to care, falling back against the medical panel the droid had been operating, hands and back braced against it. Get that thing away from her! Get it away, throne, damn it! He demanded, staring hatefully at the rigid construct as it began to try to right itself. Ahsoka ordered it away, and Farnes turned his eyes on Nerva completely, hands against the glass which separated them.
This is bad.
She was floating within, nearly naked, stripped of her red robes, which had been replaced with far less modest white shorts and a bra. He was surprised to see how much of her was still entirely human, the mesh of her steel and flesh starkly displayed. What are you doing to her? He said, turning angrily towards Ahsoka. Let her out of that! She isn't someone you can just experiment on! She's a priest and a knight, she... He began to insist, his tirade dying on his lips as Ahsoka shook her head in a mournful way. The former Jedi uncrossed her arms and walked up to the tank, looking at the unconscious woman within and laying her hand over the glass as well. That tank is the only thing keeping her alive, she said, speaking earnestly. At least, the living parts of her. We have no experience with your technology and...
He's starting to trust her. This is bad. This is heresy. You will be executed for this by your commissar. Please report to him at your earliest convenience.
Her mechanical parts were damaged in the battle. Right now, she's not in any immediate danger, but she is declining. She won't survive longer than a few more hours at this rate, and we genuinely have no idea how to help her. Ahsoka explained to him. Farnes turned away from her and looked back up at Nerva. His eyes burned to see her like this, to think that this was where and how she would die. She and Bofin, they saved me. Saved me and what's left of my squad. I can't just...
Yeah, Minerva
he lamented,
would have had a heart
eyes
attack
glistening
and died.
before he wiped them with a forearm. He turned towards Ahsoka, a resigned slump in his shoulders, looking not at her, but at her feet, before he slowly pulled his eyes back up, fighting himself to meet her gaze. Okay, you made your point. What do you want from me? He asked, clenching his fists. What questions did you want me to answer now? He continued, a pit opening in his gut, even as he spoke. No. To his surprise, Ahsoka shook her head at him. I don't want anything like that, she explained. You have already told me enough. I'm not looking for intel or information to use against you. I just want you to help me end this battle, to stop the fighting so that no one else has to die.
She's the only smart one out of this entire galaxy. What the hell?
Said the former Jedi. He blinked in shock, numbly nodding his head for a moment before his face screwed up into a confused mask. Okay, but I'm not even a corporal. I can't order anything to happen. All I'm supposed to do is follow orders. Even if I believe everything you've said to me, and I don't, but even if I did, what difference would that make? He asked her, shrugging his shoulders helplessly. Maybe a lot, said the Togruta, stepping away from the tank. Could you deliver a message for me? To your commander, I mean.
You get
She
shot.
asked, and Farnes nodded his head, but narrowed his eyes.
He's gonna get shot.
If you let me go, then probably yes, he admitted. Well then, probably we'll have to do, said Ahsoka, removing a datapad from where it was clipped onto her belt and holding it out to him. I'm going to let you go back to your side, but with this. She began to explain, even as Farnes backed away from the tablet-like device. Take it. We don't have a lot of time. There's a column of Imperial forces approaching the temple grounds even now. It's with them that I want to leave you. They have tanks, lots of soldiers, and they have been drilling through our backlines to reach the others of their forces. From that, we can determine they are probably going to make it into the perimeter to join the rest, and soon. Farnes looked up at her, face still confused, his eyes bouncing between the datapad and her eyes. Why not just drop me off at the front line? He asked her. If I did that, you might get shot by one of our people on your return.
Or one of his own.
And I know better than to try to escort you personally into your own army. I don't want to die any more than you do. Besides, I don't know what your side would do if they see you being returned by us. They might think the worst and...
Yeah, they would think the worst. They would think the absolute worst, and shoot you both on sight.
Shoot you themselves, she said, Farnes nodding limply at that. This encroaching force should have the means to both protect you once you're with them and get you to where all the other Imperial forces are gathering. We'll have to move fast to get to the interception point before they cross over it. But once we do, I should be able to leave you there, and you should be able to join their forces without much trouble. Just another wounded soldier they found on the way to their goal. Once you make it into the temple, deliver this to your commander. Make sure he reads it. She continued to explain, Farnes squinting at the bright blue pad, and then looking back up at her, eyes still slitted in obvious distrust. What is that? He asked suspiciously. Ahsoka frowned but went on, answering his question. It's a message, terms for a ceasefire. Everything inside can be negotiated more with a meeting, but I figure it might be a start, she said, almost pushing it into his hands. No, I can't,
No.
Farnes said, backing away, holding his hands up from the datapad. Ahsoka sighed heavily, shaking her head in disbelief, gritting her teeth as anger filled her chest. Why not? If you don't deliver my message, then... She began to say, the Imperial cutting in before she could finish. It's not that, Farnes said, eyes still on the pad she held. That thing, it's not a message, it's technology, he explained frantically.
True.
Ahsoka raised an eyebrow marking at that, looking down at the datapad as though she had accidentally clipped something extra onto it, but seeing nothing but the tablet. It's just a datapad, Ahsoka insisted, but he shook his head. How do I know that? Farnes blurted, sweat slicking his brow.
Yep.
It could be a bomb, or a mind control device, or even a portal beacon of some kind.
Yep.
He said, taking 2 more steps back from her and the device. I can't deliver that thing. Don't you have some pen and paper instead? He asked. Ahsoka could barely believe what she was hearing, looking back down at the datapad with obvious bewilderment. Pen and... By the Force, Farnes, even my Order's oldest records aren't recorded on pen and paper. No, I don't have any. Take the datapad! Ahsoka insisted, stepping towards him, the Imperial matching the movement with another step back. No! Farnes shot right back. I'm no traitor. How do you not have pen and paper? That's suspicious. He almost yelled.
Sus! Ahsoka is sus!
And Ahsoka pulled the pad back with a hard sigh. The former Jedi threw her hands up into the air, turning around with a huff and striding to the nearest clone. Do you think we can find ink and paper quickly? She asked him. The clone shook his head and shrugged. Ma'am, we are on Axum. The last time anyone here used a parchment was before any of us were decanted, he said, making Ahsoka slap her hand to her face. Was she really going to miss her window over this hurdle after all she had already cleared?
Yes.
Fine. Then do you have a parchment? She asked, turning to face Farnes now. The Imperial soldier shook his head at first, but then remembered something and shifted the motion into a nod. He reached down to some of the pockets on his pants and popped one of them open. From it, he pulled out a thick, long roll of dense paper.
I was about to say, don't you dare pull out your copy of the Guardsman's Uplifting Primer for some Xeno switch to write in. Are you kidding me? That would get you shot, resurrected, and shot twice.
Though it was only about as wide as Ahsoka's hand. What is that? She asked. These are my prayer scrolls. Sometimes the machines...
No! You are not going to let some Xeno witch write on your prayer scrolls. Oh God, it's worse. Forget Tarweiler. This just got worse.
To remind them of their duty and why we fight. These are blank so that I can write specific litanies on them.
Oh, they're blank.
Though,
Okay, that's a little bit better.
Heresy. He began to say, muttering for a moment before Ahsoka stomped over to him and swiped it out of his hands. Hey! He said, but she was past paying attention to his complaints, leaning over a vacant medical bed.
This
and
is heresy!
some of the paper before placing her datapad beside it. Shut up! I have a lot to rewrite, and not a lot of time to do it with. Pen? She asked, and Farnes nodded. He reached down to his right boot this time and pulled free a half-crushed quill. The ink mostly gone from it and soaked into his boots and socks. He looked up at Ahsoka helplessly, holding it out to her. For the Force's sake! Ahsoka groaned, taking the quill from him as well, and trying to scribble with it, finding it had no use left within it. Can someone find me some ink, please? Ahsoka asked the 2 clones nearby, who nodded and ran off to obey.
You're not
In the
gonna
meantime,
find ink?
the desperate Togruta looked around, thinking to herself,
You're letting her write on your prayer scrolls. She is a witch. Why?
After a couple of moments passed, she found a small surgical dish, taking it and placing it beside the paper. She looked at her left hand with a sour expression, waiting for almost a minute before sighing in exasperation and biting into her own thumb with one of her sharp canines.
Oh no. Oh God, this is bad.
What are you doing? Farnes asked as he watched her drip some of her blood into the dish. We don't have time. Besides the fact that your friend is dying, I need to get you into the column without them knowing I helped you. She explained as she dabbed the quill into it and began to write, eyes darting between the Imperial script on the datapad and the blank paper she began to fill with her best imitation. I'm not letting this chance slip us by, even if I have to be resourceful. She growled, continuing her frenzied scribing, tasting her own blood as she did. She unrolled more and more of the scrolling paper as she wrote, taking moments to blow over the red ink to keep it from smudging.
It's not red ink!
To her mild surprise, the paper was oddly apt at absorbing her blood. And in a few minutes, she had...
Oh, God. Yeah, I thought Torwala was bad. This is worse. Ahsoka's accidentally blood magicking.
Scribed out the contents on the datapad as best she could manage. Making sure it wouldn't ruin the wording, she rolled the script back up and handed it back to Farnes. The imp looked at it dubiously before taking it and tucking it into a pocket.
She's a Xenos and I don't care what you say.
On his shirt. All right, I'll do it then. I make no promises that they will listen, but I'll deliver the message. When do we leave? He asked her as he closed up the pocket. His eyes widened as she reached forward and took him by the wrist. Right now, follow me, said Ahsoka, beginning to rush towards the door and signaling to one of the clones on the way out to inform Captain Rex. She could only hope they were not too late.
You're too late. You're way too late. By too late, I mean unrelentingly too late. Hobbits, thank you. Hobbit says, y'all Imperial lovers are all insane. Oh, God. Why? Blood is everywhere. This is the heresy. This is the absolute heresy, okay? This is 100% heresy. Wait until the end? I don't know about that, Prophet. You've led me wrong too many times today. Tark, have you heard of Tanya Degurchev? I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. Boop. There we go. Old man Half. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my God. Thank you, Tark. Thank you, Hobbit. Von Straub. Yeah, screw Von Straub. Would the Imperium accept this proposal? Probably not. Okay. I'd almost have to say hell no. Okay. And even if they did, the bias from the Imperials is so strong, it would only take one Jedi flinching wrong. I mean, look at what she just did. All these things are major no-nos, okay? Major no-nos. You don't write down on your prayer scrolling. There is foreshadowing. Okay, hold on, let me take a look. Keep going, okay. Prayer scrolls. Who doesn't know what prayer scrolls are? X in the chat if you don't know what prayer scrolls are. I love this music though. Order 66 doesn't need to happen for the Jedi because a lot of them are already dead. Yeah, she is at least trying, but it's bad. Prayer scrolls. Okay, so there are a couple of different things that are going to be carried around in kit with any kind of military force, and a lot of civilians, by the way. One of those things is prayer scrolls, and it is literally a roll of actual parchment paper. And onto this is written your prayers. You write these prayers for protection, for stuff like that. You can actually use wax to bind them to weapons, things of that nature. You've probably heard of the things called purity seals. Purity seals are like prayer scrolls on crack. But what winds up happening is, so let's say you're going into battle and you want to write down a prayer for the God Emperor, kind of set it in stone. You write it down on a prayer scroll, and it's really just those rolls of paper, just like he said they were. And while it does seem like that most Imperials will be illiterate, a lot of them are. On Hive worlds, that is going to be the case, and maybe about 50 to 75% of the population is going to be completely illiterate, only knowing how to actually function the machines. But when it comes to prayer scrolls, on the other hand, most military people are going to at least have some rudimentary knowledge, and they're going to be able to write those things down, and they keep them on themselves. So when he first said that these are their prayer scrolls, oh my God, I was sitting there like, you are not going Yeah, they're blank, and that doesn't surprise me. I was worried there for a second he was actually giving her his actual prayer scrolls, because if he handed those over to his commander and he told him that that one of the Jedi, which every single Imperial commander would be believed to be a Xenos witch, had used her blood to write over his prayers, instantaneous bad shit would happen. In the form of several bolt shells, and then they'd fry his body to keep out the heresy. Yes. What Primarch do I want to see join the story?
Watch the water rise.
Give me Curse. I want maximum bad. Give me Curse in this galaxy.
Gotta find the light, can't stay in the shadows. 'Cause it's a heavy weight on our shoulders every day.
Star Wars, 100%. You wouldn't catch me dead in 40K. I wouldn't want to be there.
I don't know the right way, can't tell you what to do. In these moments of madness, I can't hear the truth. We can't close our eyes, we can't be blind to the wildfire. While we wait for the
This is where Vulcan's been the whole time. Ha. You don't want to go in the 40K universe. You don't. Nobody's ready for the hot mess of this Conrad Curse. Drop him off. It's really easy to use Von Straub as a curse word, yes. Von Straub it! Anyhow. Fan isn't here right now, Declonia. Sadly enough, he's a busy man.
I wanna keep you safe.
No, send the Big E? Yes.
Okay. But it feels so hard to feel so helpless. There's no guarantees.
Yeah, Kaon's gonna take complete advantage of him. Okay, Aboleth isn't really on the same level. Aboleth is actually more advanced than the Chaos Gods, in truth. You'd like to see Elanius Pius? That'd be nice. Magnus did everything wrong. Lord Emerald Salt, me and you. Both. They would not know what to make of it, simply put. I mean, a lot of their stuff just doesn't make any sense to the Star Wars universe to begin with, so the appearance of a winged figure that everybody seemed to revere would just be one more thing in a long list of things that the Star Wars universe is sitting there looking at going, what in the hell am I looking at right now? I know this music. I know this music. I know this music. Yep. So, what am I supposed to be waiting on here? Skip to the last 30 seconds? Okay. Hold on. Alright, there we go. Yeah, it's a bad time. Alright, skipping to the last 30 seconds. Here we go.
Stay back! Find him. Find him. What?
I wish I could.
Rex?
Stay back! Find him. Find him.
Oh. Oh. Oh no. Oh, that's bad. That is bad. Oh, that's bad. Yes, Palpatine can be that dumb. He can very well be that dumb. Creamy Sheev is that dumb. This is implied Fives is somehow going to be brought back with proper wars. I have no idea. To be fair, most of the Jedi are dead. Not most of them. A lot of them are seriously hurt. A lot of them have been wounded. Palpatine's a moron. He doesn't even seem. Creamy Sheev is not that desperate. Oh no. Ugh. Guys, X in chat if you enjoyed this, because I did. X in chat if you enjoyed this, because I know I did. The entire Jedi Council versus Demon Angron. Do you think the Star Wars tech can remove the nails? Maybe. But they'd have to stop him first, and I don't think they can stop him. I don't think there's anybody that can stop him. Yes, Palpatine is that dumb. If you remember, Palpatine flew a freighter, flew one of the Star Destroyers directly into the civilian freighter, mind you. Oh, God. The Imperium is right now too powerful without the Jedi. If Palpatine actually paid attention to the military forces of the Imperium, he would know his forces can't beat them. Palpatine screwed around and lost to a rebellion. So, he is that dumb, guys. He is that dumb. Oh, wow. Ahsoka is the galaxy's hope right now. I don't know. Sly Marbo can stop Angron. Yes, you're very true, Pat Best. Guys, thank you for joining me for this one. Force equals psychic. Okay, so Nomad, as Fan has explained it, the Force and the Warp are kind of synonymous, but they're being utilized in different ways. Pretty much every single Force user from the Star Wars galaxy has identified the Psychers of the 40K universe as using the dark side of the Force, which really is not that surprising. Guys, I'm gonna head out because I got a lot of stuff to do today. X in chat for old men needing X. No. V in chat to virus bomb Dr. Anonymous. The Imperium would have fought the Republic at some point, but Palpatine just helped justify the Imperium's war against the Republic. Yes. The Republic fired first, and there's nothing the Republic can do to really change that. Guys. Oh, man. Oh, good Lord. Guys, I will catch you next time. Definitely, if you have not checked out Fan before, check him out. The virus bombing of Prophet continues. I hope you guys had a good time. I hope you guys will join me the next time Fan puts something out. Join me on Thursday for shenanigans. And on Sunday for Amogus. Oh my goodness. Can the Star Wars universe survive? Yes, but not at the rate they're going. The Imperium is too powerful right now. Their cycles are threats to Palpatine's own power alone, and Anakin has been tempted by chaos. Now I know this is true. Guys, I hope you have a good rest of your week. I'll see you on Thursday for shenanigans. I'm out, guys. I'll see you next time.